So this very first problem, we're going to do 2 in this video. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to circle the last number called the constant, and I'm going to come up with all the factors of 8. And so factors of 8 are numbers that nicely divide into 8. So numbers that nicely divide into 8 would be 1, 2, 4, and 8. 1, 2, 4, and 8. Now, if you didn't know how to do those, what you could do is we're going to work all the way up to 8. So I go 8 divided by 1. If I get a nice number, I write it down as a factor. 1's a factor. 8 divided by 2. Okay, it works. I put down 2. Notice how 3 does not work. 4 works. 5 does not work. 6 does not work. Anything with that decimal behind it does not work, but 8 works. That's how I was able to choose 1, 2, 4, and 8. The leading coefficient is a hidden 1, and the factors of 1 are 1. What do I do with those numbers? Constant, the factors of the constant always go on top. So 1, 2, 4, and 8 are always in the numerator, and factors of the leading coefficient are going to be in the denominator. Now I'm going to list these out. These are the ones that I'm going to test. Positive 1, negative 1, positive 2, negative 2, positive 4, negative 4, positive 8, and negative 8. So I'm going to get started with testing these. I'm using synthetic division, which I refer to as the mama method. So I'm going to write down the leading coefficients. We have 1x to the 4th, negative 3x to the 3rd, negative 2x squared, 12x to the 1st, and negative 8x to the 0. I'm going to start by testing 1. If 1 is in fact a solution to this equation, which means when I plug it in to the left-hand side will equal 0. If it's a solution, I get 0 down below. So how do I use synthetic division? I refer to it as the mama method. We always drop down the first number that's in the inside, and then I start with multiplying. I always multiply back to this number. 1 times 1 is 1. I add straight down. Then I multiply. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2, and I add straight down. 1 times negative 4 is negative 4, and I add straight down. 1 times 8 is 8, and I add straight down. That tells me, because I received 0, it tells me 1 is a solution. I'm going to come up right now, and I'm going to circle this. I already know, I already know that this is even degree, and I have a leading coefficient that's positive. So I want 4 solutions. I know one of them is 1. Once I find a solution, I use these remaining numbers as I continue to check, not the 0. So instead of writing this down, I'm going to write down 1, negative 2, negative 4, and 8. Now I'm going to test negative 1. I drop down the first number. I multiply to get negative 1. I add down to get negative 3. I multiply to get 3. I add down to get negative 1. I multiplied to get 1, and I did not receive an answer of 0 at the end. That means negative 1 is not a solution. It's not a solution. I'm still going to continue to use these numbers as a shortcut, so I'm going to write a little bit smaller here so we all can see. 1, negative 2, negative 4, and 8. I'm now going to test positive 2. I drop down the first number. I multiply. That's the mama part of the acronym. Multiply, add down. Multiply, add down. Multiply, add down. And now I achieved an answer of 0. So I need 4 answers, and I know that I have 2 of them. I have 2 of the solutions being 1 and 2. Once I'm down to 3 things to the left of 0, I'm now going to write an equation. How do I do that? We go from right to left, just reverse of what we normally would read. No x's, 1x, and 2 x's. I know 0 times any number is 0, so I can cross out that middle. And now I'm simply going to solve here. So to get x by itself, I'm adding 4 to the opposite side. I'm dividing by 1. Opposite of multiplying is dividing. And I have x squared equals 4. X squared equals 4. This tells me I'm going to have 2 solutions. How do I get those 2 solutions? Plus or minus, and I know the square root of 4 is 2. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to write down my solutions. I'm going to have 4 solutions. One solution is 1, another solution is 2, and then I have a positive 2 and a negative 2. A positive 2 and a negative 2. These are my solutions. I'm going to do a really rough graph right now, so I'm making an XY axis here at 1, at 2, and at negative 2. Also notice that we have a y-intercept way down here at negative 8. Way down here at negative 8. Okay, this is even degree and a positive leading coefficient. That means it is up on the right and also up on the left. Now at negative 2, there's only one solution. It's going to cut straight through. At positive 1, there's only one solution. It's going to cut straight through. But at 2, there's a double solution. It's duplicated, so it needs to bounce off at 2. And it looks something like this. So let's look at this next one. You are going to have problems today that have 5 solutions, so it may be valuable for you to take notes on this. Just like the previous example, I'm going to start by circling the last number, the constant. Now, what are factors of 12? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. And again, how would I achieve those numbers? I'm taking 12 and I'm dividing by the numbers leading up to 12. So 12 divided by 1, there's no decimal, it works. 12 divided by 2 works. We can see there's no decimal that we get. But when we jump to 5, we get a decimal. That's why I did not include 5. That's why I did not include 7, 8, 9, and so on, right? Leading coefficient is 1. The only factor of 1 is 1. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12 all over 1. I'm going to list the numbers at this time. I have 1 and negative 1, 2 and negative 2, 3 and negative 3. And it's time to start testing them. I'm going to write a little bit smaller, hoping I can get them all in this paper. So the leading coefficient here is 1x to the 5th, negative 3x to the 4th, negative 5x to the 3rd. I'm putting these all down at this time. And I'm going to start by testing number 1. So I drop down the first number. If you have somebody in your group that's been gone, this is going to seem like it makes no sense to them. Doing synthetic division, again, I call it the mama method. We're dropping down the first number, and then I multiply to get 1. I add straight down to get negative 2. I multiply, always back to this outside number to get negative 2, and add down to get negative 7. Multiply to negative 7, add down to 8. Multiply to 8, add down to 12. Multiply to 12. What does this mean? Turn to your partner. This is my last example of the day. What does this mean? It means that 1 works. How do I know it works? Because I got 0. I'm going to circle it. Now, here's the shortcut. I'm taking these remaining numbers, and that's what I'm going to use now. It's 1 less number, and it will speed things up. I don't use 0. I go all the way, in this case, to 12. I'm now going to test negative 1. So I'm dropping down the first number. After I drop down the first number, I'm multiplying and adding down. 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 It also worked. I got 0. So negative 1 works as well. Anything that can help us do less work or a shortcut is to our advantage. So now I'm going to use these 4 numbers. Why am I doing that? Because it worked. 1, negative 3, negative 4, and 12. Let's now test 2. Let's test 2. I drop down 1. I'm multiplying to get 2, adding down to get negative 1. Multiplying to get negative 2, adding down to get negative 6. Multiplying to get negative 12, and it works. So 2 actually works as well. Now here's the part I think most of you will forget. Once you get down to the part where there's only 3 items to the left of 0, you are now going to rely on your factoring skills. So I'm going to write this equation. Negative 6 has no x's. Negative 1 has 1x. Positive 1 has 2x. What 2 numbers multiply to equal negative 6 and combine to give you negative 1? What 2 numbers multiply to give you negative 6 and combine to give us negative 1? Negative 3 and positive 2 do work. This is x minus 3 and x plus 2. I could set each one of these quantities called factors equal to 0 and solve, but remember we have a shortcut. We're going to change a sign, in this case divide by 1. So 3 is one answer. Change a sign and divide by 1. Negative 2 is the other answer. So 3 and negative 2. 3 and negative 2 are my other answers. I have 5 solutions, and I've been able to identify all 5. Now, how would I graph those? So I'm going to go 1 and negative 1, 2 and negative 2, and positive 3. This is an odd degree and a positive leading coefficient. positively in coefficient, odd degree, is up on the right, down on the left, and I can see that I also have a y-intercept of negative 12. So somewhere way down here at negative 12. So it's going to come up,